In this video, we are going to talk about writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So let's just review quick about what we know about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So when we're writing equations of lines, we know that parallel lines never cross, meaning that they're going to have the same slope. So them having the same slope is going to be really helpful. Perpendicular lines, on the other hand, do cross, and they cross at a 90-degree angle. And the way that that happens is if their slopes are opposites and reciprocals of each other. So one is a negative, one is a positive, and then their fractions are flipped over. Both of those things need to happen to get perpendicular lines. So when we're writing equations of lines, it's often easy to start in point-slope form. You also know slope-intercept form, that's y equals mx plus b form. So when you're writing in that form, this form is y equals mx plus b form is really easy when you know the slope and you know the y-intercept. Okay, but then the y-intercept is only an ordered pair that starts with x equals 0 and then some y value, whatever that happens to be. So if you're given any other point, okay, point slope form is a really nice way to do that because this point can be any numbers in for x1 and y1. So what you do is you do y minus the y coordinates. You're going to plug the y coordinate in here equals the slope times x minus the x coordinates. You're going to be plugging the x and the y coordinates in, and you're going to be plugging the slope in. So remember, you do y minus the y, slope, slope, and then x minus the x. So let's just write an equation given a slope and a point. So write the equation of a line that has a slope of -1/2. Okay, so here's our slope. So they just gave us our slope. And then that goes through the point -3/8. So now they're giving us a point. The x coordinate is -3 and the y coordinate is 8. So we're going to go ahead and plug it in here. I often like to just leave blanks for all of the things that I'm going to plug in. So we're plugging in for the y1, the m, and the x1. Okay, so you're going to put your y1 here, you're going to put your slope here, and you're going to put your x coordinate here. Okay, so y minus the y coordinate, which is 8, equals the slope, -1/2, times x minus the x coordinate. So then I like to just kind of simplify it a little bit. So we just have y minus 8 equals -1/2. And then here we have x minus -3. So the minus and the minus will combine to make a plus, and then 3. So now the other part of this problem wanted us to write the answer in slope-intercept form. So we just need to distribute this -1/2 in. So we'll get y minus 8 equals -1/2 x, and then -1/2 times 3. So I'm just going to do that off to the side here. So when you're multiplying fractions, here's a little rhyme for you. Multiplying fractions, it's no problem. Tops times tops, bottoms times bottoms. So remember that the bottom of an integer is a 1. So we're just going to do tops times tops, which is going to be -3, bottoms times bottoms, which is 2. Then we need to get y by itself, so we're just going to add 8 to both sides. So I'm going to put the 8 over here because it's a like term with that -3/2. So we end up with y equals -1/2 x, and then we just need to combine these. So remember, when you're adding fractions, okay, you need to have a common denominator. Okay, so remember this 8 has a 1 underneath it. We want it to have a 2. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 2. Since 2 over 2 is 1, so we're not changing it. We're just changing the look. So we'll get -3/2 plus 16 over 2. Add those together, and you get 13. So plus positive 13 on top, and then just a 2 on bottom. The bottoms stay the same. You're welcome to do decimals for this as well. So if you wanted to do this as -1.5 instead, and then you would get 6.5 here. Okay, so this is the equation of that line with a slope of -1/2 going through that point. So then let's take a look at if we wanted to do the equation of a line parallel to. Okay, so parallel is going to help us get the slope because if we remember back to that first slide, parallel lines have the same slope. So what this is trying to get you to do is steal the slope from this equation. So this equation says y equals 6x minus 3. The slope is 6. So a parallel slope to 6 is also 6. So we're going to be using 6. We don't care about anything else in this equation. Then we want it to go through the point 1, negative 5. So they're giving us an ordered pair. X coordinate is 1, y coordinate is negative 5. So when they say parallel, biggest thing is you're taking the same slope. And now we're just going to plug it in here. Whoops. So we'll do y minus the y coordinate equals the slope times x minus the x coordinate. So y minus the y coordinate is negative 5, equals the slope, 6, times x minus the x coordinate. So we'll just clean this up right here. We don't want it to say minus minus. So a minus is really plus. And then we'll solve for y. So we'll distribute this 6 in. So we'll get 6x. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. Then to solve for y, we'll subtract 5 to both sides. So we get y equals 6x. Negative 6 minus 5 is negative 11. So this equation is parallel to this original one, okay, and it goes through the point 1, negative 5. If we wanted to do the equation of a line perpendicular to something, so remember perpendicular means that we need the opposite and the reciprocal slope. Okay, so when we look at this equation, y equals 1/3 x plus 8, we'll see the slope is 1/3. Okay, so the slope that they gave us is 1/3. We want to do a perpendicular slope. So this one was positive, the original is positive, so the perpendicular has to be negative because they need to be opposites. And then you also need to flip the fraction. So we'll flip it to 3/1. Which just simplifies to negative 3. So the perpendicular slope that we're going to use is negative 3. Then we'll go through and see that they gave us an ordered pair. So, and goes through the point 2, 4. So 2 is the x, 4 is the y. And we can then plug all of this in. So y minus the y equals the perpendicular slope times x minus the x coordinate. Y coordinate is 4. Make sure you do the perpendicular slope, negative 3. Right here, plug it in immediately. Don't plug it in your final answer. And then x minus 2. So it has to go in right away. Then we don't have any minuses, so we don't have to fix any of that. So we will just distribute. So distribute negative 3 to both of these. So negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Then we'll add 4 to both sides. So we'll end up with y equals negative 3x plus 10. So you'll see that you've got the opposite reciprocal slope there, and then it also goes through that ordered pair that you plugged in of 2, 4. Last example, so what's an equation of a line that passes through this point? Okay, so here's our x1 and our y1, and is parallel to this line. So we need to get the slope from here. So parallel means same slope. This isn't solved for y yet, so we're going to have to solve this one for y to get the slope. Okay, we want it in slope-intercept form. So we'll need to subtract 4x from both sides. Don't lose this negative. So it's negative 5y equals negative 4x and a positive 35. Divide everything by negative 5. So we end up with y equals negative over negative is a positive, and 4/5 doesn't simplify any further. So 4/5 x 35 divided by negative 5 is negative 7. The slope of this line is 4/5. So the parallel slope, which is what we want, is also 4/5. So we're going to use 4/5 as our slope. And then remember, we have this ordered pair up here. Let me just write it down next to this slope as well. So the ordered pair was negative 5, negative 6. And then plug into point slope form. So y minus the y coordinate equals the slope times x minus the x coordinate. The y coordinate is negative, so I'm just going to go negative 6 equals the slope. So the parallel slope, which is 4/5, x minus the x coordinate. X coordinate is negative 5. So now distribute your slope to solve for y. So we'll get y plus 6 equals 4/5 x, and then 4/5 times 5. So 4/5 times 5, remember that's 5 over 1. Tops times tops is 20. Bottoms times bottoms is 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4. You can also just notice that you have a 5 on bottom and top, so they'll cancel, and you'll just end up with 4. Then you can subtract 6 from both sides. So we get y equals 4/5 x minus 2 as our final answer.